This is episode 265 of Jumblethink.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview amazing entrepreneurs about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's show is Zachary Friedman. More about Zachary in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, you can catch every episode of the show in podcast form wherever you listen to podcasts. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts very simply by going to jumblethink.com/iTunes. That's jumblethink.com/iTunes. By the way, you can catch us in radio format all across the country in 17 cities. To see if we're in a city where you're at, go on over to jumblethink.com/podcast and you'll find a list of cities and times there. Now let's jump into today's show with Zachary Friedman. Hey there, welcome to Jumblethink. My name is Michael Woodward. I am your host. We have an incredible show lined up for you today. Before we get rolling, we're going to take a moment to pause here and thank our sponsors for today's show. Today's show is being sponsored by our friends over at Penji. They are your source for unlimited graphic design at a low monthly rate. As a listener of Jumblethink, they're doing something cool. They are giving 15% off your first month. All you have to do is head on over to penji.co, that's .co, not .com, and use the code JUMBLE. So head on over, penji.co, use the code JUMBLE to get 15% off your first month. We also want to thank our friends over at opportunityinchina.com. Whether you want to learn or teach abroad, they are your connection to educational opportunities around the world. So head on over to opportunityinchina.com to learn more. Well, are you ready for today's show? I know I am. I am so excited about today's guest. His name is Zack Friedman. Zack Friedman helps companies and people reach their full potential. Well, how does he do that? Well, millions of people rely on inspirational thought leader and financial expert Zack Friedman for advice. Through his appearances on CNN and MSNBC and his regular columns in Forbes, Zack Friedman is known for making his business advice simple, practical, and empowering. Zack combines his deep experience as an entrepreneur, investor, executive, and author to deliver inspiring, motivational, and actionable keynotes that drive results. Through engaging storytelling and real-world examples, Zack isolates the financial habits and behaviors that significantly drive innovation, creativity, and energy for every audience. He just released a new book. We're going to talk about that book called Make Lemonade. We're going to talk about his company. We're going to talk a lot about innovation. This is a super fun interview, and why waste time? Let's jump into this conversation we had with Zack Friedman. Our guest today is Zack Friedman. Zack, thanks so much for being on with us at Jumblethink.
Thanks so much, Michael. Very excited to be here.
I know you have a new book out. We're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about your past journey, about finances, about working with Forbes and all of that. But before we get going, there's got to be a story of how you got to where you are today. I'm sure a long story, but let's just truncate it down. What kind of got you to where you are today?
Yeah. So first of all, very excited to be here. Appreciate you having me on Jumblethink. And, my journey has been one of gratitude. I'm very grateful for where I am today. I'm a CEO of a company called Make Lemonade, which empowers people to lead their best financial life. I'm also an author. I have a new book, which you mentioned, and also a columnist at Forbes. And, entrepreneurship for me has been an interesting road. I started out working on Wall Street in finance, working at firms like Blackstone and Morgan Stanley, also as a hedge fund investor. Later became a CFO, international energy company. And for me, I always wanted to take that entrepreneurial path. And I think so many people gravitate towards, I want to work for myself and I want to build my own thing.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I first wanted to work for other people. And I wanted to kind of get the skills and understand how to run a business, how to invest in businesses. And I wasn't quite ready. And so I wanted to take time and kind of learn the ropes. And, over time, I decided what I wanted to do was build my own destiny. And so started my own company and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, and the mission of Make Lemonade's really cool. I love it. Simplify personal finance to help consumers. I mean, what better could be that goal and mission when you're working in finance?
Absolutely. And what I saw, I always try to solve a problem when I'm thinking about things. And so one of the problems I think that exists still today in financial services is a lack of transparency in financial services, and consumers aren't as empowered to make financial decisions as they should be. And so what I wanted to do was create a platform that very transparently gave consumers the power and put them in the driver's seat. So what do I mean by that? What we do is we are a comparison website. We compare all the top financial products for things like student loans, student loan refinancing, credit cards, personal loans, debt consolidation. And we partnered with the top lenders, credit card companies, and we basically say, here are our independent reviews, here are all the rates, here are all the loan terms, and they're all side by side. So you don't have to go searching on the internet or figure out how to get a loan or what you should do. It's all very step by step. You can apply directly on the website and compare the best rates for you based on your personal circumstance. Same with credit cards. If you want a cashback card or you want a travel rewards card, it's all laid out very clearly. And that really puts consumers in the driver's seat and takes it away from kind of the big banks. And that's what we like to do. We like to empower people and make it more transparent and easier to make financial decisions so you can win.
I think that's really fascinating because there is so much talk about what are the best ways to deal with your money. Different strategies, different solutions, but often it feels like the tools are really outside of our grasp to really assess what might be right for us. So how did you even get to the point where you were like, hey, this is good to talk about? There's a problem here. There's a situation. Money management's done poorly. Understanding debt, understanding loans is done poorly in our culture. How did you really get to that point where you say, I've got to do something about it to make this accessible?
It's a great question, and it's something that I thought about for a long time. My background is in finance. I've been an investor for a long time. I invested a lot in financial services companies across the spectrum, from banks to credit card companies, fintech companies. And as I looked at business models and I looked at some of the broken areas, I thought about what are the pain points and what's a way that consumers can win? Because I think a lot of times in financial services, unfortunately, consumers don't win.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fine print. It's very hard to figure out if you're getting a good deal or not, right? You see commercials on TV or on the side of a bus, but you don't really know at the end of the day, are you getting the best deal?
Right.
And so we see this in the travel space, right? We see companies like Expedia that compare the best hotel rates, and you can kind of choose what city you're going to and based on the accommodations you prefer and the price you want to spend. And it's much easier because you can compare and see it, and it's much more transparent. So I wanted to do the same thing for financial services, and we really do it. And we've decided not to be a lender, so we kind of took the lending piece out of it, and it makes us much more objective and trustworthy. And then on top of just comparing rates, we also have great tools. Everything's free, by the way. So we have free calculators, for example. So you can tell within seconds, how much money you can save on a student loan refinancing, and you'll understand your monthly payment, how much you'll save in interest. And then we connect you with what we think are vetted, top-rated partners who we trust. And you can apply directly through the website with our partners. And it just makes the process much more seamless. We also have a quiz, for example, that you can take for a whole customized free student loan repayment plan in less than a minute.
Wow.
So those are the things that we do to empower consumers, and everything on our site is free. So I would encourage everyone to check it out at makelemonade.co.
All right. So I've got to ask, though, if you're giving all this away for free, how do you actually make money?
So we're partnered with, as I mentioned, lenders, credit card companies. And so we get paid every time a loan is consummated. So it's, there's no referral just to send someone to a website. If a consumer decides to actually transact for a loan or loan refinancing or purchase a credit card, for example, then we get a referral for that. So it's really based, the things everything's aligned in terms of the interests. We don't, just send people to places. We really put the power in their hands to make that final financial decision.
One of the things that stood out when I was at the site was that you are focused at one level on millennials. That's a big core of the audience you're trying to reach, trying to serve, trying to help solve this problem. There is a stigma around millennials and money and the lack of it. Why millennials? Why this specific space?
So millennials are an interesting customer segment, right? They kind of born at the cusp of, this whole student loan debt crisis or national issue, if you want to call it that. Today there are about 45 million Americans who have student loan debt, and in total that's about $1.6 trillion. It's the second highest form of consumer debt, right behind mortgages. So it's higher than credit card debt, higher than auto debt. And, depending which side of the coin you fall on, a lot of millennials, Generation Z, have been impacted pretty materially by student loan debt. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of people have. And it's prevented, if you look at some of the studies, a lot of millennials from, making that decision to buy a home, have a family, have children, getting married, things like that. You can debate it and say, look, you can still do all of those things even if you have student loan debt, and that's a fair critique as well. But student loan debt is one of the biggest issues, and so there's not really, even though we've made a lot of technological advances, we are not seeing in our schools teaching personal finance. I mean, I certainly didn't learn that in my in my schooling. Right? We didn't have any finance at all coming up. I went to public school. Maybe it's different elsewhere, but I think a lot of people, we hear about finances, but we don't really break it down very simply. And what I wanted to do was break it down very, very simply. So we focus a lot on our content, and our content is really simple to understand and simple to read, even if you don't have a financial background. And then beyond that simplicity, it's also very actionable. So it tells you proactive steps to take. I mean, I read so much financial content on other sites and in publications, and it's usually really complex. It's like the author likes to write just to write. They don't really break it down so you can use it for yourself. And I want to do the opposite. I want to make it so clear cut that anyone, a parent, someone who has no financial background can go to the site and see exactly what they need to do. How do you apply for a loan? How do you refinance your student loan? Where do you go? What is a personal loan? How does that help you? Here are the ways that it helps. Here's what it will do. Here are the pluses and here are the minuses, right? I think that transparency is important so people understand and they can own their financial situation. That's what Make Lemonade is all about.
All right. I've read a whole bunch of your articles on Forbes. I think there's probably like 300-400 articles that you've written on Forbes. There's a lot. But a lot of them do seem to stem around the topic of student loan. So I want to take a moment and talk about student loans. There's, of course, massive amounts of conversation around student loans because the Democratic platform is, by and large, talking about student debt forgiveness. So why is student loan such an important topic to you that you would write and spend so much time investing into that space?
Again, I think it's an important issue for the economy as a whole. As I mentioned, $1.6 trillion, 45 million Americans. That's a pretty significant number.
Yeah.
There's a lot about mortgages and homes, but student loans are an issue. And, there's pluses and minuses of having a student loan, obviously. And, you get the asset of the education and a pathway to higher income, perhaps, obviously, with that college degree or an advanced degree. And then there's the other side of the folks who aren't able to repay their debt. The interest rates get ahead of them. They don't have the best, economic opportunities. And so it's a really interesting issue that affects all types of people. Parents, retirees, senior citizens now are one of the largest constituencies of holding student loan debt as well. So it's not just about the younger generation. And so it's just an interesting topic from so many angles. And there wasn't, when I started doing this, a lot of great content and opportunities and resources for folks to really take control of their financial situation. I'm all about giving people the power to take control of their lives and take control of their financial situations with respect to Make Lemonade. So that's why it's an important issue to me, to help educate people, to help keep them informed, to show them resources, financial calculators, ways that they can save money to make their life better.
With all the talk about student loan forgiveness, where do you stand on that?
So it's a complex issue. I don't think it's like a yes or no thing. I mean, there's different types of student loan forgiveness, right? There's public service loan forgiveness, for example. These are folks who have committed for 10 years to work in public service. These are folks who, for example, serve in our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, people on the front lines, first responders, people who work in government, who are dedicating their lives to help people to give back. It was a program started by President George W. Bush in 2007. And it was really meant to help people who were initially who actually were working in rural environments, but it has since expanded. So, programs like that, I think, are worthy, and they help people who are giving back to society. Yeah. I think some of the other programs where folks, some of the candidates are proposing kind of just widespread forgiveness. I think some of the arguments against that have been made. Number one is, who's paying for it, right? Does it make sense to,
right?
Basically have a wealth transfer from one constituency to another? I mean, obviously, there's an overlap. Some of the people who obviously have student loan debt are also taxpayers, but should taxpayers be footing the bill for this? Obviously within that constituent base of 1.6 trillion are people who have money, can repay their loans. So should they receive that forgiveness too? What about the people who just paid off their loans last year? Do they get some kind of retroactive repayment? So I think there are a lot of complexities with just forgiving loans, and you've seen obviously the headlines in my column and others, and so there are a lot of constituent pieces to it, and there's folks on both sides of the aisle who are very vociferous with what the path should be. But I think it's going to be a while till people work out in Congress and elsewhere, policymakers, until they figure out what is a fair way to do this, if at all. Because there's an argument you can't no one's paying off your mortgage or your credit card debt or your auto debt. That's not being talked about currently, but student loans seems to be. And also, what's the role of colleges and universities is another topic people bring up. They're the ones who charge the tuition to begin with. So what should happen there? And a lot of them have endowments and get government funding. And so how does that work? And so you've seen some proposals around there as well, and some talk.
Yeah, and I think that leads to a bigger conversation, which we won't have today, which is you can forgive debt, but that doesn't solve the long-term problem of education and the system itself and how we fund, teach, and grow generations to come, which is a completely different issue. So you can say, hey, we're just going to forgive this or make student debt go away because we're not going to charge for education, but that's not sustainable.
That's right. And it's really almost a one-time solution because it doesn't, college is still expensive, right? And that doesn't go away. Like there haven't been proposals to, literally eliminate the cost of college. There have been some for, the community college level and some of the public institutions. But then again, who pays for it? Are they going to make state colleges? Is each state going to start paying for it? That still gets funded by taxpayers. So I think the whole education system really needs to be looked at holistically and not just having one solution that somehow is going to fix everything, because I think folks need to be a lot more thoughtful, and so it's going to take more time than currently just one election cycle. Yeah.
So how are you finding purpose in what you do?
I think having purpose is the single most important thing that someone can have in their life. It's really at the centerpiece of my new book, which is The Lemonade Life. And for me, the way I think about purpose, it's the reason you wake up every single morning. It is the why in your life. It's why you do what you do. And the purpose in my life is really to create impact. It's something that's so important to me to give back and create impact. And you can do that in so many ways. I do it through my company, Make Lemonade. We try to create impact for consumers and individuals every day, for families to live a better financial life. I do it through my book and through my speaking, The Lemonade Life, to really inspire people to lead their best life. I think people who create impact, no matter what you do, if you're on the front lines as a police officer, as a firefighter, in the military, as a teacher, as a podcast host, as a business executive, an entrepreneur, you work in public service, whatever you do, you raise a family. There's so many ways to create impact in other people's lives. And I think when you put other people first, you create an enormous sense of purpose in your life. And I think that is so inspirational and really allows you to achieve greatness and have success in your life when you think about other people before yourself.
Now, you are building something here that's pretty amazing, and it's impacting people's lives, which is helping fulfill that purpose. What's one big challenge you're currently working to overcome in the business?
All types of businesses have challenges. And I think one of the biggest challenges is how do you as you scale your business. So let's break it down. So when you have, a business that's in its very nascent stages, you might have one type of technology, or you may have no technology. And as your business grows and scales, you're integrating different forms of technology. You want things to go faster, be more efficient, really to help consumers. So you take out those roadblocks. I think one of the big things that I focus on as a CEO and a founder is, how can we make the process more seamless, right? How can we get information to the consumer, to the end user faster? and how can we make it easier for them and more efficient. So we're always looking at ways to improve our technology. We're always looking at ways to make our user experience more seamless. So there's fewer clicks, placement on our website so people can see things more easily. So those types of things we're always thinking about so we can remove the roadblocks and pain points and make consumers have a much more seamless, effortless transaction and experience.
What's the big goal you have for where you want to take Make Lemonade as a business, as a book, as everything you're creating? What's the big dream there?
Yeah, so Make Lemonade, the company, is really about growing people's financial life. And so how can we kind of be there for them in all aspects of their life, from their spending needs to their saving needs, to dealing and managing with debt? How can we be a partner to people and really lift them up and give them the tools and resources they need to live a better financial life and a better life? My new book, which just came out, which is The Lemonade Life, is all about happiness and success. It's really how can you fuel success, create happiness, and conquer anything in your life. For me, spreading a message of positivity and inspiring people to really take a look at their life and understand where it is today and look at the world perhaps differently than they currently are, so they can win and think more holistically about living their life with purpose and possibility in their personal lives, in their work lives, and the way they see the world around them. So my purpose is really to spread that message and the way that people think about the traditional models of success and integrate a lot more happiness into their life. I think that's something that is so overlooked, but it is so essential to the human spirit, is the role of happiness and how that really impacts the people that we are and the people we want to become.
Super, super, super cool. We are going to take a break right here, and we're going to be back with Zack Friedman. We're going to talk about his book, Lemonade Life, How to Fuel Success, Create Happiness, and Conquer Anything. We're going to talk about his 5 traits or switches that lead to that purpose and possibility he's talking about, and much, much more. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Penji. Here is a little bit more about them. Penji helps startups, agencies, small businesses, big businesses, and marketing teams achieve more with unlimited graphic design support at one flat monthly rate. Their easy-to-use online platform pairs you with a professional designer and lets you create as many design projects as you want. Think of it as your monthly subscription to top-notch design. No contracts, no hourly billing, just fast, simple, and affordable graphic design for all of your needs. We've even used Penji here at Jumblethink to help design some of our logos for like idea camps. We loved working with them, and I think you're going to love working with them too. As a listener of Jumblethink, they're doing something really cool. They're giving our listeners 15% off your first month when you visit penji.co. That's penji.co, not .com.co. Use the code JUMBLE, JUMBLE, to get that 15% off your first month. So head on over, penji.co, and check them out. We also want to thank our friends over at opportunityinchina.com for sponsoring today's show. Have you been looking for a way to change your career or social prospects? Do you see the world around you changing and haven't quite figured out what path you should take? Well, you are not alone in seeking opportunity. Visit opportunityinchina.com for access to scholarships to attend university in China, or if you have a bachelor's degree already, opportunityinchina.com provides access to jobs in the educational sector all across China. Now, working in China is not only often well paid, but it will place you among 1/5 of the world's population, boosting your social network, bringing you more deeply into the story of globalization, and opening up doors you never knew existed. Seize your opportunity now. Visit their website for more information at opportunityinchina.com. Now let's jump back into today's conversation. We are back with Zack Friedman. All right, Zack, important question we've got to ask right now. How can they find and connect with you?
You can connect with me in several places. I'm on social media at Zack A. Friedman, ZackAfriedman on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn at Zack Friedman. Take out the A. You can also find me on a website, which is ZackFriedman.com. And the Lemonade Life, my new book, is available everywhere books are sold. And also we have a website, which is lemonadelifebook.com. You can also check out the video book trailer as well.
Very cool book trailer. I was watching it earlier today. We will have all those those links and more in the episode notes. So if you're listening and going, hey, there was a lot just said, where do I go again? Head on over to jumblethink.com. Check out the episode notes like you always do, and you can find the links to everywhere you can connect with Zach and the book. All right, I want to talk a lot about your book because it's a super cool topic. It's called Lemonade Life: How to Fuel Success, Create Happiness, and Conquer Anything. It released August 6th. Very, very cool book. Where did the premise for this book really start for you? When did you say, hey, I've got a surefire passion of mine that I want to share?
So it really started when I met Warren Buffett.
Okay.
And I had an opportunity to have lunch with Warren Buffett. And it actually opens up the beginning of my book, The Lemonade Life. And I had a chance to go out to Omaha, Nebraska and hang out with Warren Buffett for a few hours at Berkshire Hathaway and then have lunch with him with a group of folks. And I was listening to Warren Buffett like anyone would expect. A brilliant man, brilliant investor, has built a beautiful empire. But we expected to hear a lot more about the economy and about business and investing. And as I listened to Warren Buffett, what I heard was really a different message. And that message was a few things. It was really about happiness and understanding yourself, not so much about the traditional definitions of success.
Okay.
And as I started to listen to Warren Buffett, it really dawned on me to really start answering this one question, what drives success? And that's why I wanted to write this book, The Lemonade Life, because a lot of people think about success as these traditional models of, well, you got to have skills, you got to work hard, maybe there's a little bit of luck. But I think it's a lot deeper than that. And so I started studying leaders in business and politics and sports and entertainment to kind of look at, what makes a leader successful? What makes someone who has attained whatever they have in their field stand out from the rest? And as I delved deeper into it, I started to look at kind of the models of success and the models of happiness. And what I found is that happiness, people who lead their life with purpose and possibility on their own terms, which is called the lemonade life, are really the people that are most successful. They're the people who kind of outperform the average pack. And that's really what drove me to write this book.
I think that's really, really cool. And to hear the story of how it triggered for you, it was kind of like a light switch almost went off when you were listening to Warren Buffett, and it was just like, hey, wait, I must have missed this for a long time. What was it like to have that revelation like, hey, I need to dig here deeper. I want to go deeper into this and really find this place of happiness that drives success?
It was an enlightening moment. It was an epiphany. And when I see something like that I think is interesting and worth sharing, I spend the time to look into it more and really try to understand it. And what I found is that, the traditional models of success are that, you try to go to a good school, you try to get a good job, you work for 30 to 40 years, and then you retire and you're 65 years old. And it's like, great, I spent all this time, I saved up this money, I was really successful. And finally, I get to be happy. It's like, great. I get to spend time with my family. I get to go to the beach. I get to play golf. I get to have all those hobbies I never did for 45 years. And now I get to be happy. Wow. And that's just a raw deal. Yeah. I mean, that is not the way to be leading your life, but it's the way that so many people lead their life. I mean, I know people in my family, my friends, people I've met over the years, that's literally their life model. And I think it's not a great life model.
Yeah.
No criticisms on folks, but it's not the best way to lead your life. And so I think that as a society, as a global society, really, we need to start thinking about how to get happy today. Okay. How do you put happiness in your life at the forefront today? And I think the people that understand how to do that, and I teach you in the book, The Lemonade Life, how to really think about that concretely and holistically, are the people who actually not only have that happiness throughout their entire life, but they're more successful at it as well. Because I think happiness, as it's been shown in research, can actually drive success, not necessarily success driving happiness. Happiness driving success is where we really should be focusing our attention, and where thought leaders should be thinking about it with respect to leadership as well.
I want to pause here because I think it's really significant to quantify what you mean by these things. So first off, you say what drives success, and you look at happiness as one of the traits, the driving force. But what is success? How can we quantify that in our lives?
So success has different definitions for everybody uniquely. Okay. I don't think there's a universal definition of success. One person might define it in a financial context, right? It might be, I make a certain amount of money, I am successful, right? And that's their definition. Other people may say, I'm not driven by money. I'm driven by creating impact, right? Which we talked about in the first segment.
Yeah.
And so if I can create impact, if I can touch the lives of other people and make their lives better, I am successful, right? Someone else can say, I lead my life with purpose. I have a meaning why I am here, right? And there's so many ways to define that purpose or that meaning. But if I have purpose in my life, I'm successful. Or, I've decided to stay home with my family and raise my children to be kind-hearted, to be polite, to help others, to excel, to give back and contribute to society. If I can achieve those things, I am successful. And so there's no universal definition of success, but I do believe that if people follow the tenets of my book and they think about happiness and success, and we can get into the ways that you do that, I really believe that you can find your own definition of success, your own definition of greatness. And that's really what the Lemonade Life is all about.
I also want to take a moment and define happiness, because I think it's something that people look for. And a lot of people try to quantify it and say, when I arrive at having X amount of dollars in the bank, or when I get the house, or when I get married, or when I get whatever, then I know that I'll find fulfillment and happiness. But one of the things that stood out as I researched about your book and about the Lemonade lifestyle, living that Lemonade life, was that you're saying you can be happy today. So how can we shift that to really be happy today? And how can we quantify happiness in our lives?
It's a great question. So all of the things that you described are kind of in one's life, right? Earning a certain amount of money, acquiring some kind of asset, right? A home, a car, taking that dream vacation. All of those things can make you happy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you can get happiness from that. But I think those are all external things, right? And so happiness, we've all heard this line before, but happiness really comes from inside you. It really, really does. And I think all of us have happiness inside of us. I think the problem and the challenge is we don't know how to unleash it. And I think that the most successful people, again, this doesn't mean you're happy all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think that's a tough one. But I think the people who understand themselves, are truly self-aware, and who have the right mindset can unleash the happiness that they have in order to be more successful. Okay. And so happiness will always be internal. There are external things that can make you happy, but to have true happiness and joy and fulfillment in your life, it's only going to come from inside you. It's so important to remember that. It only comes from inside you. That's where it all starts.
You say it comes from inside you, and you can find stories, whether it's stories in ancient writings like scripture or in modern writings, or even people. I know of a couple people off the top of my head that I'm just like, they're always filled with joy. They're always compassionate, even when situations aren't good or when they're going through hardship. But that's like it's reaching for something. When you say it's inside of you, it's reaching for something that I think a lot of people have trouble tapping into. You talk about 5 traits or switches that help lead to that purpose and possibility. Talk to us a little bit about that and how people can start reprogramming how they view the world or how they view happiness, and begin to change that in their lives to have the significance of what happiness could look like for them.
It's a really good point, Michael. And you said a very important word, which is reprogram.
Okay.
A lot of this actually is reprogramming your mind, your behaviors, your habits to orient towards more positivity and finding and unlocking the ways to seek happiness. So when I started looking at the successful people, right, and across the spectrum in business and politics and entertainment and sports, what I found were these 5 common characteristics, these 5 habits, 5 behaviors.
Well, before we go there, who are some of the people that you research? Because you mentioned sports and you mentioned politics and you mentioned different spaces. It sounds fascinating. So who are some of the people that helped illuminate this for you?
Sure. So people like Warren Buffett,
Yeah.
Sam Walton of Walmart,
Yeah.
Jack Ma of Alibaba, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mother Teresa. These are some of the folks. Magic Johnson. I mean, the list goes on, and a lot of them have stories in the book that we talk about how they went from kind of not being known, not having the career that we all know from them today. But where did they start? We meet them in the book at the bottom, right? When, Sylvester Stallone, for example, had no money in his pocket, and he had acted in a few movies, but no one ever heard of him. We meet Jim Carrey also in the book when no one would hire him. No one knew how funny or how talented he was, and kind of, what are the steps they took to create greatness in their life. And I studied others as well who aren't in the book, but what I found was kind of these 5 switches. And when I say a switch, what I mean by that is like a light switch, these 5 behaviors. And so when I say happiness is inside and our ability to achieve greatness is inside of us, I believe strongly that if we can flip these 5 switches, and they're all inside of us, so we have the power to do it, we can get on the right track to be our most optimal in forms of being successful. Now, many people are successful who are listening to your podcast and have done very well in life, and that's wonderful. So this is not just for people who are having a tough time and they can't find happiness and they're miserable, right?
Right.
People can be very, very successful. People I write about in the book some of them are billionaires, but that doesn't necessarily equate to living your optimal life, right? I think all of us can improve, myself included. I work on it every day. How can we optimize? How can we get that peak performance? And anyone who's doing something in a world-class way, whether you're a business leader, a political leader, a sports leader, you're an entertainment, you're a podcast host, whatever you do, there's always a way to get better and to optimize it. And so I think the tools and tactics in the book can really help you get there. So these 5 switches, which we can go into, are really what I believe kind of the cornerstones and foundation that many people have used, and I believe that everyone else can benefit from if they can apply them to their own lives.
So what are the 5 switches?
So the best way to think about these switches is with an acronym. I think it's the easiest way to remember it. And that acronym is PRISM, PRISM. And P is for perspective, R is for risk, I is for independence, S is for self-awareness, and M is for motion.
Okay.
And if you can flip on those 5 switches, I believe you can have more success, more happiness, and more greatness in your life.
Throughout the book, you give a lot of tips. You talk about why you should write yourself a $10 million check. So share that story with us.
So coming back to Jim Carrey. So Jim Carrey came to Los Angeles from Canada, and he was trying to make it in Hollywood as a comedian, as an actor. And what he found was he was getting rejected, right? As many people come to Hollywood, no matter how talented they are, they hear no a lot. And he has an incredibly powerful, positive mindset. And as he got to his career kind of starting in the beginning, he said he used to drive up to Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles, which sits atop a mountain.
Yeah.
And he would kind of think every single night to himself and remind himself and tell himself how wonderful he was. And even though he'd be rejected during the day from casting directors, he would tell himself that, you know what, these casting directors love you, and directors love you, and people love you, and you're so funny. And he would remind himself of his greatness. And one day he decided to write himself a $10 million check. Now, he had no money. He had no money at all, right? So this is not, he can't pay himself this. But what he did is he post-dated it. And this was in the late 80s, early 90s, and he post-dated it to 1995. And he said he wanted to get $10 million for making a movie. And he kept that check in his wallet every day. And he referred to it just every single day. I'm going to get paid $10 million to make a movie, which when you're making zero that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, he got paid a lot more than $10 million to make a movie.
Right.
So it worked out for him. But the moral and the lesson of the story is you really do have the opportunity and the power to create greatness in your life. And, a positive mindset, we hear a lot about it. Some people think it's cheesy, but it really does work. And if you have a positive mindset, and I'm talking about that term reprogram that you used earlier.
Yeah.
If you really reprogram your mind and you rewire your brain where you're oriented towards positivity, okay, it's not watching a YouTube clip for 5 minutes and like, okay, everything's great now. It also doesn't mean you're happy 24 hours a day, but what it does mean, if you orient towards positivity and you see the world, experiences, people, situations in a positive light, not a negative one, you're also able to rebound and to deal with situations and roadblocks that will be tough. And of course, there will be tons of toughness and challenges in your life, but you're able to deal with it so much better when you're oriented towards positivity than when you have a negative mindset. And I think the Jim Carrey story is just one example. And that's why I think it's crucial for everyone in one form or another to write yourself a $10 million check. And if money is not the goal in your life, find something that's comparable where you can remind yourself every single day of your greatness.
You mentioned the 5 switches, and they're really a benchmark or cornerstone of the tools that you give people in the book. Take one of those for a moment and give someone that's listening right now saying, I'm struggling with finding purpose, finding the possibility around me. Maybe take one of those switches and give them a 2-minute little walkthrough and say, do this today, do this tomorrow, do this in the next couple of days. And then, of course, pick up the book and get the full gist of everything, read it and devour it. But one thing that they can do quickly right now to begin this shift.
So here's the number one thing I would recommend to every single person listening to this podcast. So the Lemonade Life is about leading your life on your terms with purpose and possibility. We talked about purpose in the first segment, which is the why you do what you do every day.
Yeah.
A lot of people skip over that. They don't actually sit down and can write in one sentence, my purpose in life is to blank. If you take literally 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you need to write down that one sentence in your life, I would implore everybody to do that right now. I think that's one of the most important things. Why is that important? When you have a purpose or a driving force in your life of why you're doing what you do, it's a game changer, because what it does is it focuses you to always come back to that why. Why am I doing this? Why am I going to work every day? I mean, yes, I need to pay bills. I need to make money. But why am I doing this? Am I doing it for my family? Connect it to your family. I love my family. It's really important to me to take care of my family. That's why I'm going to work. What am I creating in my job? I mean, are we making widgets? What are we doing? Oh, we're helping people, buy a car. We're helping design a clothing line so people can feel more comfortable at work. We're creating a new electronic device that'll make people's lives easier. Connect it back to your purpose. So the first thing I'd recommend is that people take the time to really think about their purpose. And when you have a purpose in life and you're grounded, you have a set of values, possibility, which is the second part of the Lemonade Life, is infinite opportunity. And I truly believe that there are infinite opportunities for people to take advantage of in life. Okay. Not in every single geography. You might not see it right in front of you in your town or in your city, but out there are opportunities for you to take advantage of. And when you have purpose and you're able to think about your value set, you can really see more opportunity in your life, because if you believe in the possibility of greatness, then you can open your eyes to new opportunities that are out there. I think that's really a central thing that people can think about. And I'll give you a second one as well.
Okay.
Practicing gratitude for me has been life-changing. And what I mean by that is, and you asked for a practical tip. So one of the things I do every morning and is to sit down. First thing I wake up, I would if you're not feeling great about yourself, probably the best thing I can recommend, don't go for your phone first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. I think so many people, the first thing they do every single morning is they grab their phone, they go right on social media, or they check their work email. 2 worst things you can do in the morning. Seriously. What I recommend you do in the morning, if you want to start your day with greatness, and we all have our own morning routine, it can be exercise, you go to the gym, go for a run, you can pray, you can meditate. The first thing I like to do is I like to practice gratitude. So I have a gratitude journal. I sit down every single morning and I write down 3 things for which I'm grateful. Okay. These are the 3 blessings that I want to focus on in my day every single day. And these could be anything that's important to you, your family, your friends, your job, your company, where you went on vacation, whatever is important to you. And the reason this is so important, number one, don't just think about it. Literally write it down. I know that sounds tedious. You're doing it every single day. But if you spend time actually writing it down, looking at the letters and the words as you write them, and then spending another about, let's say, 5, 10, 15 minutes reflecting on that, almost meditating on these 3 things. And that point is important. If you think about the greatness you have in your life, the blessings you have in your life, look what you've done, right? Rather than checking social media and seeing what you don't have, right, from all the photos on Instagram, right, or all the annoying emails you get overnight from work about everything you forgot to do or you didn't put down in your journal, your schedule of what you have to do. You start your day with gratitude. You start your day with greatness, right? You've created this zone around you of all the wonderful things in your life, and so use that to fuel your purpose. Use that as your foundation to start your day. It's not going to necessarily give you a bulletproof shield, but what it will do is it orients you towards positivity. And when you deal with those roadblocks, those challenges, those annoying emails at 11 a.m. or at 2 p.m., you're going to have more strength to beat them, throughout the day. And so I would implore everybody, start your day with gratitude, try it, see if it's for you, but it's been life-changing for me.
Yeah, as a family, we've been doing that lately because we've been going through some hard things, and it's real easy to see all the negatives, like a project that's taking too long, or a check that still hasn't arrived, or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And just make that hyper focused, and then the world begins to fall apart around you, or your world.
It does. Yes.
And yet you see like all the things that are great that are happening, and it's like it's a perspective change that really sets a different tone for the day. So I think that's a great tip.
Thank you. I completely agree with you.
I want to close this segment from this quote that you wrote or said. You said, "Entrepreneurship is a lonely road to greatness." We talk about that often. We say isolation is the death march of entrepreneurship, is one of the ways we put it. As an entrepreneur, as a show that is focused a lot about entrepreneurship, it's something that we don't talk about in entrepreneurship enough. That it is a lonely road. So how can people really navigate that place of loneliness on the journey of entrepreneurship?
It's a great question, Michael. I think a lot of people just want to be an entrepreneur, and they see kind of the finished product, right? They see the billionaires, they see the private jets,
Yep.
They see the money. And entrepreneurship is not for everybody. It's really not. I know, the podcast is devoted a lot to that. I write a lot about entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur. And I talk about this in the book, The Lemonade Life. You really have to make sure, number one, that an entrepreneurship and that path is right for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it is a lonely road, right? You don't get to see the photos on the internet, of Bill Gates starting out, or, Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos in their garages, but that's where they were, right?
Yeah.
And you really have to make sure that leaving your job, leaving your, automatic check that you receive every 2 weeks, that's always taken care of for you. You don't even think about it. Make sure that, you're okay giving that up, right? Make sure that you're okay taking a chance, making sure that you're okay, that you're going to hear no a lot. You're going to hear a lot more no's than a lot more yeses.
Yeah.
And, the Lemonade Life and the philosophy of the book is really the philosophy that any entrepreneur needs, because you are going to hear no so often, and it is so easy for you to fall into a negative mindset, because people are not going to believe in you. They're not going to believe in your business plan. People don't want to give you money. People don't want to form partnerships. And I'm not saying this to be negative. It's just straight talk.
It's truth.
It's truth. It's absolute truth.
Yeah.
And so, one of the biggest challenges of being an entrepreneur is number one, being able to weather those storms, and knowing, if you have something or you don't. And you find that out, sometimes the hard way, but just understand that entrepreneurship is a lonely road. Okay. I think that is so important for people to realize. Now, if you make the decision and you say, Zach, Michael, I know that. I understand it. Like, I'm going to be the CEO, the secretary, the janitor, the board of directors, the partnerships guy, the sales guy, and you're comfortable with that. Great. I do believe that if you work at it and you have a great idea and you can execute it, I also say that entrepreneurship, it really requires two things. It doesn't matter how much money you have, where you went to school, what you do for a living beforehand. If you have a great idea and you can execute, I really think you can be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Now, you have to have a product or a service that people want. And so my next piece of advice would be, don't focus on you, focus on them. And what I mean by them is, you may think it's a wonderful idea and this is going to be the next big thing, but if consumers don't care about it, then you don't have a business.
Yeah.
And I think so many people forget about that. The restaurant is a perfect example. People say, I'm a great cook. People are going to love my food, and I'm going to open a restaurant. Well, consumers may not want that restaurant. They may not like your food. It doesn't mean you're not a great cook. It doesn't mean you're not talented. It just may not be the right place, the right decor, the right neighborhood, and it may the wrong prices. Like, it may just not work. And so I think it's so important for people who are going to be entrepreneurs to realize that. Focus on the consumer, focus on the customer, the client. Make sure that you're delivering a service or a product that people actually want. I think the world's very efficient, and if they don't want it, know when to pivot or close shop, try another idea. But I think that's very important. And then the last thing I would just say is, the last part of that quote is, entrepreneurship is a lonely road to greatness.
Yeah.
I truly believe, and this is a center theme in the book, The Lemonade Life, is that everyone has a shot at greatness, however you define it. And so I do believe that entrepreneurship can lead to greatness for you. I would encourage everyone to at least try it at one point in their life, because I think it does create wonderful things for you, just beyond financial. And I would encourage everyone to do it at some point. And I also strongly believe another big quote in the book is that after the struggle, there's greatness on the other side.
Yeah.
And if you remember that, I think you'll be very successful.
We are going to be back with Zach to do rapid fire questions. There is a lot going on here at Jumblethink, and we want to keep you in the loop. So how can you connect with us? Well, head on over to jumblethink.com. You can find a place to sign up for a newsletter where you'll get updates on upcoming guests, amazing things happening at Jumblethink, and even giveaways. So head on over, jumblethink.com, and you can sign up for that. You'll also find links to our social media channels like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to be a part of your journey of chasing big ideas and dreams, and we'd love to be there to help you along that journey. Head on over, jumblethink.com. Let's connect, and let's do the journey of chasing big ideas and dreams together. Now let's jump back into today's episode as we wrap up with rapid fire questions.
Levez seulement le bras pour mettre l'aiguille sur le disque. Mettez le comptable.
We are back with Zack Friedman, author of Lemonade Life. Super cool book, really important topic, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you need to read this. All right. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask this question, and I didn't know how to bring it up, but I think that I have a good question based on this. So you, early on in your career, worked as an intern for the chief of staff to President Bill Clinton in the White House.
I did. That's correct.
You did, which is pretty crazy. There's very few people that can say that they've worked in a White House, and that's probably crazy stories and amazing times and weird times and whatever. I mean, any White House has got that, I'm sure. My question for you is this. Your topic is about Lemonade Life. It's about finding happiness where you are. Politics right now is not finding that. It's dissension. It's turmoil. It's everyone's angry at everyone. No one's right. Everyone's the bad guy. Infighting. It doesn't matter if you're on the Democrat or Republican side or you're an independent. It is a election cycle filled with just hatred and bad things. So my question for you is this. As a person that's worked in politics, as a person that's worked in finance, and a person who has written a book about happiness, how do we bring civility back to politics?
I think people have to remember why they got in public service in the first hand. Right?
Okay.
I think that there's always going to be differences, right? Ideological differences, partisan differences, belief systems, and that's just going to be the way politics is. But I think much like gratitude, if people kind of start with realizing what they have and what they don't have, they can work towards more compromise. And what I mean by that is there are commonalities, right? Despite all the rancor and the bickering that we hear, there are, reasons people got in. You think about your why and your purpose. I'd say most people who are in public service, really want to help people. They really want to make a difference. They may have different ideas of how to do it. But I think if they remember their why of why they got into it in the first place, I think that can help calm people down somewhat. And then secondly, I would kind of focus on the areas that they can work together. I mean, we hear a lot of politicizing, obviously, about certain issues. But if they can find common ground and kind of start with that common ground, much like you start your day with gratitude and what you do have rather than what you don't, right? Because so much of what we hear is what people don't have, right? And that's where there's the disconnect. So I think we'd see a lot more connectivity if we focus on having kind of the common ground.
Super, super good. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to play basketball for the Los Angeles Lakers.
Nice. What's one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
I think you need to look inside, ask yourself whether this idea is going to help people and how are you going to help them. I think going back to what I said before, if there is an idea that will work for certain consumers and you can help make their life better, that's where I would start. I think you just have to get in there and get in the arena. I don't spend too much time strategizing and planning and doing analyses and tests and this and that. I think you just have to kind of dive in and do the work. It doesn't mean your product's ready day one. I don't mean that, but don't spend years and years and years and years of thinking about it. Actually put pen to paper and just try it it, and you'll fail a million times, but you'll eventually get there.
What's one big lie about entrepreneurship you'd like to break?
I think the biggest lie about entrepreneurship is that it's for everybody. I don't think it's for everybody. I think you need to understand yourself. One of the big tenets of the Lemonade Life, my new book, is self-awareness, and really understanding whether you're actually good at being an entrepreneur, because I don't think everybody is, even though people think they are. And, having an idea is a lot different than having a business. And so if you're going to start something, make sure you're the right person to do it, and make sure that your idea is actually a business and not just an idea. What's
one change you'd like to see in the world?
I'd like to see more people be happier, and really get a chance to live out the life that they want. I think so many people focus on what they can't do, and it may be because of circumstances or their current situation. And coming back to the idea of greatness, I would love for everyone in the world to find their own purpose and reach their own definition of greatness, however they define it. Again, does not have to be financially, but however they can achieve greatness in their life. I would love to give everyone an opportunity to do so, because I believe in the human spirit and the human condition to achieve more.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I'd like to be remembered as someone who helped people, created impact, and inspired them to achieve more in their life. I love giving back. I love helping people. I like to think about how we can make people's lives better, and someone who loved their family.
Speaking of inspiration, where do you find inspiration?
I find inspiration in so many places. My family is very important to me, and so I find inspiration in them. I find inspiration from my friends, people who I've met over the years, people who read what I write inspire me. I love hearing from people who read my Forbes columns, who have read my book, who've listened to the audiobook for the Lemonade Life, which I narrate, which I've heard some folks share some very inspirational stories about. So, I love to connect with people. I love to hear their stories. And so I get inspired from people's stories and the lives they're living and what they're doing to work towards greatness.
What is one book you think every dreamer or entrepreneur should read?
Well, Lemonade Life, which is my new book, but I think there are a lot of great authors out there that I think are worth reading. I think the book of How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie's, is a great one to read.
We've talked about some of these other things on the list, so I'm going to kind of close with this final rapid-fire question here. What is one dream you're still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
Well, I have many dreams in my own life, but I think probably one of the most important is to teach my children to have values. I think that's something that I would want my legacy to be. So I'm trying to teach them every day, my wife and I, how we can, instill positivity in their lives, greatness in their lives, for them to have good manners and to treat people kindly and fairly and respectfully. I think that's super important, and that's something that I is a dream of mine, to see my children off better off than me.
As we wrap up, we always like to have our guests have a final thought. So what's your final thought for all of us today?
Well, first, it's been a great pleasure to be on the show. I really appreciate it, Michael. And I think the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway that people can think about is that you really have the power to control your destiny. And I think so many people forget that. I think a lot of people are kind of stuck in either a rat race or a dependent mindset because they're basing it on kind of what other people tell them they have to do with their lives, or they think they're supposed to follow this path. They hear it from their family or their friends or society. And I think that people just need to take a step back, stop listening to your boss, stop listening to your friends or your family who are kind of putting negative things in your mind, and just really think about your greatness and your strength and who you are as a person. And I think the more you take time to understand yourself, I think the better off you're going to be. And I do believe that everybody has a shot at greatness. It's the center of my book, The Lemonade Life. And I do believe that if you follow the switches in the book and you think about yourself and what you can accomplish, and you kind of filter out the noise that you're hearing, I think you'll have a broader perspective on life. It doesn't mean you're going to immediately crush it day one, but I think it'll give you some more perspective and more grounding and help you find your path personally, but also professionally as well. And so take some time to kind of understand yourself better, take some time for self-care. We forget about that a lot, right?
Yeah.
We take care of others, we take care of our family and our friends. Spend some time on yourself. I think it'll pay a lot of dividends.
Zach, thank you so much for taking time out, being on the show, giving us some inspiration, but more importantly, for taking the risk to step out into an unknown journey to discover and really go deep into this and to share kind of this revelation to the world. And I know this message is going to impact a lot of people. So thanks for taking that risk and going there.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Michael. It's a great, great podcast.
Once again, we want to thank today's guest, Zack Friedman, for taking time out to be on the show. Check out the episode notes, and you'll find all the links on how you can connect up with him and what he is doing. We also want to thank Penji and OpportunityInChina.com for sponsoring today's show. You can learn more about Penji at penji.co. Use that code JUMBLE to get 15% off your first month. And check out Opportunity in China at OpportunityInChina.com. Now it's your turn to turn your dreams and ideas into reality. So get out there, dream big, and change the world around you.
Revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.